Okay, we have quorum now, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, community. Welcome, members of the committee. This is quorum in the new North York Community Council, such as it is. Welcome to the committee members. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, we all acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. You can follow the meeting on your computer, your tablet, or your smartphone by going to toronto.ca/council. These sessions are also being videotaped for later purposes. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, can I have a motion from a member to adopt the previous meeting's minutes? Councillor Cole is adopting that. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So let's proceed with a run-through of the items. For the public's knowledge, items 1 through 5 and later items 24 through 31 and additional items are timed. So right now we're going to go right to item number 6 and go through those items to see if there are any holds or if councillors want to adopt. Item number 6 is preliminary report, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment at 1304, 1306, and 1308 Wilson Avenue. That is in Councillor Pasternak's ward, and while he can't be here, he's hoping that we'll adopt staff recommendations. Do I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Minawong, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item number 7 is preliminary report zoning amendment application for 2673, 2675 Bayview Avenue. That's actually Councillor Robinson. I don't have any instructions, so maybe we'll stand that down until she gets here. But I suspect it's a preliminary report. Item number 8 is also a preliminary report zoning application, 1861 O'Connor Drive. That's Councillor Minawong. Okay. Item number 9 is preliminary report, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications for 850 and 858 York Mills Road. That's also Councillor Minawong. Okay. Staff recommendations are moved. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 10 is preliminary report, official plan zoning amendment 110 and 112 Sheppard Avenue West. That's Councillor Fillion's ward.
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 11 is parking amendments on Kennard Avenue. That is Councillor Pasternak's. He's left instructions that he's hoping we adopt staff recommendations. Do I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Cole, thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 12 is parking prohibition on Kodiak Crescent. That's also Councillor Pasternak's. He's hoping we adopt staff recommendations. Councillor Fillion, do you want to move that one for me? All right, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 13 is an always stop control, Dane Avenue at Mulholland Avenue, Theo Bagnato. That's your ward, Councillor Cole. Move adoption of the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 14, traffic control signals, Duplex Avenue at Orchard View Boulevard and at Montgomery Avenue. Councillor Cole. Adoption of the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 15 is a construction staging area time extension, 2360 Yonge Street. That's the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 16 is a pedestrian crossover at 11 Thorncliffe Park Drive. That is in Councillor Robinson's ward, so I suggest we stand that down until we hear from her. And item number 17. Item number 17, traffic calming Pineway Boulevard, is a request to poll the neighborhood. There is a deputant registered here. Is Sarah Fernandez here yet? Yes. I suspect because it's just a request to begin the polling, that it is the intention of council to adopt and let staff proceed. Are you in opposition to that?
No, I'm not. It's just my concern is a lot of the residents, English is not the first language.
Oh, okay, then I'll hold this down, and you may want to depute on that, and we'll look at a resolution to that. Okay. So we'll hold 17 and take that deputation before the timed items. Number 18, stop control Royquest Avenue at Brentwood Avenue. That's you, Councillor Fillion.
I'll move that.
Okay, moving the staff recommendations, all in favor, opposed, that's carried. Item number 19, Bathurst Manor Traffic Management Plan. That is Councillor Pasternak. He's hoping we move the staff recommendations. Councillor Fillion, you want to move that? Sure. Thank you. All in favor, opposed, that's carried. Item number 20 is a designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes at 200 Sir William Hurst Avenue. And that is also Councillor Pasternak. I'm going to move adoption of the staff recommendations. All in favor, opposed, that's carried. Item number 21, I think this is the last on my list from Councillor Pasternak. Oh, just about. Appointments to the Business Improvement Area, Boards of Management. These are for Ward 6. All in favor of the staff recommendations? Opposed, that's carried. And lastly, in the non-timed items is item number, oh, wait a minute. Sorry, there are two. 22 is recipient of the Agnes MacPhail Award for 2019. I don't see Councillor Robinson yet, so we'll just move that as soon as she gets here. And there we go. And lastly, item number 23 is the endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes. Are there any additions? Seeing none, do we have adoption of the recommendations before us to adopt the items submitted? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. That is the items that are not timed. So we have a few that are held down. Just look at the time. Here we are. So we're into where we can take the timed items. Councillors, I'm just going to suggest that before we go to the first item for 9:45, we go to item number 17 and hear that deputation, and then we should be able to quickly consider that item. Ms. Fernandez, did you want to address us?
Yes.
Okay. You have 5 minutes to speak to the committee.
Okay, no problem. I don't know if this is on. Okay, my name is Sarah Fernandez, and I'm a resident of Pineway Boulevard. I've been a resident for the last 31 years. And in that time, I've seen lots of changes, mainly the traffic, the volume that has increased, and also the speed. A traffic study was done back in November, and it seems like there's over 1,000, in fact, close to 1,700 vehicles that pass through Pineway Boulevard on a daily basis. In fact, sometimes it's really hard to come out of the driveway. It's like you have to wait a few minutes because of the traffic, especially in the mornings. For those of you not familiar with Pineway Boulevard, it runs parallel to Leslie Street, and people use it as an alternate route to commute from Finch to Comer Avenue and Comer to Finch. And they speed along because there's no traffic lights or anything like that. So it's quite disturbing. And Pineway also is the main road for many of the side streets like Burnick, Weatherstone, River, Levycote, Alamosa. There's also a school on Pineway Boulevard, Pineway Public School. And so a lot of traffic is comes from the school with a daycare attached to it. When I contacted the city, they put me in touch with Sean Dutch, and Sean suggested maybe traffic calming would be, he suggested what might be a solution, but he informed me there was a process involved, like with getting a petition done first, then a traffic study, polling. And so I did the petition. It was a very interesting exercise. The principal was very, very supportive because he said the little blue signs to slow down traffic really wasn't that effective. And one of the neighbors said she was hit actually by a car. Fortunately, she wasn't seriously injured and has recovered. And so when I did the petition, I exceeded the 25% requirement, and we moved on to the traffic study. The traffic study was submitted, and a recommendation was made to install the traffic calming, subject to polling. Okay. A traffic study was submitted, and a recommendation was made to install traffic calming, subject to polling. My concern with the polling, I don't object to it. It's just that people might not really pay attention to it because English is not the first language on for many of the residents on the street. When I did the petition, a lot of the children were home and they could explain to the parents what it was about, and they were very supportive and positive about getting the traffic calming. So that's the only concern I have.
Okay, that's your only concern with adopting the poll today. So we'll be asking staff their feedback on that. I'll just ask councillors, are there any questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I'm going to just quickly open the floor to questions of staff just to alleviate that concern. Councillor Minnan-Wong, did you have a question, staff?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
So then we're not going to see it again, so have you examined whether it's appropriate to put these speed bumps on the street?
Through the chair, yes, we have examined it. It does meet the criteria under our policy, and we've provided a proposed plan of where they would be most appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question?
Yes, Councillor Cole?
Yes, to staff. Is the school mentioned here, is that designated a school safety zone yet?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. All schools have been bylawed as such.
I just wanted to mention,
Sorry, once your deputation is finished, now I'm into committee and you can no longer comment.
Okay.
So there are signs up already and designating the school safety zone?
Yeah, through the chair, at this time, I'm not aware if they've gone in yet. They would be pending at this point, but they may not be yet signed.
So just to get back to Mr. Clement, you're saying that all schools have been designated school safety zones?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct.
So the issue is of when they are signed and, markings take place? That's what's holding it up, sort of in terms of these designations that are visible to the motorist and the public?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Obviously, there's a significant number of schools to be done, so they will be in the queue. We are certainly working through that at this time.
And are the schools like this one here rated in terms of where they are on the list of being designated physically?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's a prioritization occurring in terms of the signage and pavement marking installations. I would have to look into that. I don't know at this time.
Is it possible to get a list of the priority designations for schools? Like, for instance, in the North York Community Council area?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. I can get that list to the members of council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cole. I just have one question myself. I just wanted to ask staff, how do we accommodate English as a second language when we're doing an official poll like this? This is a neighborhood. Well, chief among them will be people who will need to see this in Asian languages.
Through you, Chair, yes, we do have the ability to send out polls in different languages. We would typically consult with the councillor's office to determine what those other languages would be most appropriate, and we would advise clerks accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are the questions. Are there any speakers? Okay, seeing none, I'm just going to quickly speak to this. We will be discussing what languages need to be done in the area with staff if council adopt today. Councillors should know, and staff will back me up on this. I've been a councillor for 15 years. I have never been in favor of speed humps anywhere in my ward. In this case, the prior study that was done in November and my own lived experience through the year of 2018, this meets the warrants on every line. You'll see in the report that comes forward. It would appear it is what we're going to see increasingly going forward. This is pretty much conclusively a Google shortcut. If there is any problem anywhere on Leslie or on Bayview, this thoroughfare that takes you from Cummer down to Finch and bypasses whatever blows up right in front of an elementary school. And that's why staff who are reluctant to recommend such traffic calming measures are willing to do this poll based on their initial study in November. So I'm going to be moving the staff's recommendation to conduct the poll. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for your deputation. Okay. Yes. Sure, I'll indulge. Although it's early days yet. Later on in the meeting, not so much. What was your question?
The question about you saying you're never in favor of speed humps. I don't want to date myself, but I remember the only speed bumps in Toronto were on Farnham Avenue, south of St. Clair Avenue Road. And at all the former unamalgamated cities and the metro, all the transportation managers, directors were religiously against speed humps. You know, they said it was ambulance, snow clearing, so I have a bit of background with it. But I'm just wondering, as an alternative to the speed bumps or humps, have we ever considered the rumble strips?
Okay, so now
that's the question I have.
That's a question of a councillor, because we've already voted on this item. And I'm going to suggest that the next time we have an item on traffic calming, that's a question you pose of staff. There are many designs and quite a catalog. So rather than me take the place of the experts, we'll have that discussion next time we have a traffic calming measure.
We'll have a full report on rumble strips, okay, then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, as we've already voted on the item, I'm not ordering any such report because we've already voted on this item.
There's been a gallon of ink spilled on traffic calming.
Indeed there has.
Maybe your staff should look it up and...
Okay, so councillors, so if we go back to the order, I just want to go back for a second. We've reviewed the agenda. Just before we do the timed items, a motion is required to introduce the following items before they can be distributed and considered by you. I have an additional item, item 332, which will be a report from the Director and Deputy Chief Building Official from Toronto Buildings regarding a request to demolish the residential building at 101 Sheppard. That's in Councillor Fillion's ward. And there will also be an additional item 333, which is a memo from myself regarding a request for a staff-initiated official plan amendment for Gordon Baker Road. So I'm looking for a motion to introduce those two items. Councillor Fillion, so moved. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So those can be distributed to you now. Okay. So councillors, we're going to go back now. We're well past 9:45. Oh, seeing Councillor Robinson here. Councillor Robinson, we held some items that you may deem straightforward in your ward. NY 38 is in your ward. We held that down.
3.8 I don't think is, but 3.7 is?
It's a preliminary report.
Yes, 3.7.
Oh, wait a minute. No, that's the one that Councillor Minnan-Wong held. It's 3.7. Yeah.
3.7, okay. So that is very easy. I just like to move the staff recommendations.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And then NY 316.
So again, easy peasy, like to move staff recommendations. A lot of consultation has taken place with residents.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And one more in Councillor Robinson's ward, NY 322.
Yeah, again, I would just move, it's a recipient of the Agnes McFell Award, so I would just move that.
All in favor of the award recipient? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, that is it. We just have one held item for later, and that's Councillor Minnan-Wong's NY8. So, Councillor, we're going to go back to the beginning of the agenda, which is NY 3.1, and that is, I believe, Councillor Pasternak's ward. Yes, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 30 Tippet Road. And all I have from Councillor Pasternak is that after much deliberation, similar to what Councillor Robinson just said, he is recommending that we adopt the staff recommendations today, and I have no deputations on the matter. Councillor Minnan-Wong is moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I believe you just added to our list of affordable housing. Well done, councillors. That takes us to item 3.2, and I do have, this is in Councillor Fillion's ward. Councillor Fillion, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application 1521 Holmes Avenue. We have a deputant, but it's your intention to defer the item?
Yes, Madam Chair, my intention is to move a motion to adjourn the public meeting until our next meeting on March 19th to resolve some issues related to interpretation of the official plan.
Okay, so is Mr. Toole here today? Meyer Toole? Okay, Mr. Toole, you may wish to know then, if council adopts a deferral today, if you speak today, when we do bring the item forward for full consideration, you would not then be able to speak. Would you prefer to wait until the item's before us then? Okay, so we'll take the motion to defer. Thank you for coming. We'll notify you when the consideration comes. So you want to move a motion to defer today, Councillor Fillion?
Yes, thank you. I'll move that North York Community Council adjourn its public meeting under the Planning Act until March 19th, 2019 at 10 a.m. I would very much want to, privately, I would like to know what the concerns are of the deputant, so if you're able to stick around, I'll pop up and chat with you as well.
Okay, okay. All in favor of the motion to defer? Oh, Councillor Minnan-Wong, did you wish to speak to the item? Okay, question for the mover?
Is the applicant aware of the deferral?
Yes.
And is the applicant okay with that?
I believe so. I spoke to the applicant's I'm not sure exactly who the applicant is, but I spoke to someone last night who was okay
Okay.
with it, yeah.
Okay, so the motion is before us. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That is deferred. Okay. Item, hang on a second, councillors. Okay, item 3.3, request for interim direction report, 25 Fisherville Road. Let's go back to Councillor Pasternak is suggesting that we approve the staff recommendations. Councillor Minnan-Wong, you want to move the staff recommendations on 3.3? You are so helpful. All in favor of the staff recommendations? Opposed? That's carried. His biggest #1 fan. Item number 4 is a request for direction report zoning bylaw amendment application 2450 Victoria Park Avenue. We have some deputants. The deputants, I think, have reviewed the report. What's before us today is that planning recommend continuing to oppose the application and to continue working on the issues listed. Is it your wish still to speak today? It's strictly on request for direction, so not it's not the same situation as the previous item. Speaking today doesn't preclude speaking later at LPAT or at a later item if it should come before council. So we'll go through the list. It's a quick list. Great Chatillion. Good morning. You have about 5 minutes.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Chatillion, and I represent the Armenian Community Center. And I'll be brief on why we're opposing 2450 in summary. The Armenian Community Cultural Center located at 45 Old Crown Place and the Armenian Youth Center located at 50 Old Crown Place serves the Armenian community of the GTA and cater for cultural, spiritual, and educational needs. The two properties have a total area of about 130,000 square foot, is a home to the St. Mary's Armenian Church, the area's school, including daycare, kindergarten, elementary, and secondary school with total student body of in excess of 650 students. As a member of the Consumers Next study group representing interests of the Armenian community along with other neighborhood associations and property owners, such as the Wishing Well Community Association and Bryan Village Community Associations, we are generally in agreement with the content of the Consumer Next report, which was adopted by the Planning and Growth Committee and by the City Council in 2018, after extensive community discussions and minor modifications. Our neighboring residents and the community are generally in support of the proposed secondary plan, except that it is desirable to tighten certain requirements by revising the language which the community has been advocating. Our objections to the development proposal can be summarized in the following points. 2450 Victoria Park site is not and should not be construed as a high-rise building site. The provincial PPS clearly dictates that the mixed-use designation along avenues at the employment-designated area fringes should be low to mid-rise developments. 2450 Victoria Park Avenue site is within an employment-designated area providing employment to hundreds. The intended for mixed-use development is not just retail stores at the ground level within a mainly residential development. The intent should be to comply with the municipal requirement for employment area redevelopment to maintain at the least the square foot area of the current commercial uses, office and retail, and enhance it where possible. It will only be fair to ask the developer to reconsider increasing the office employment content proportionally to the increase in the density proposed in the secondary plan. If the intention is to increase employment from current 18,000 to 32,000 within 10 to 20 years, the development should take its fair share. Currently, there are several traffic issues at the main intersection at Sheppard Victoria Park. The same traffic issues reoccur at secondary intersection at Consumer Road and Sheppard, Yorkland and Sheppard, and Consumer Road and Victoria Park Avenue. Additionally, the first two intersections are encumbered with huge developments which impact of which is not yet fully felt, as the new construction projects for these developments are in various degrees of completion. With a huge development such as the one proposed for 2450 Victoria Park Avenue, the traffic problem will be multiplied and another bottleneck will be created at the Consumer Road and Victoria Park Avenue intersection, which will probably negatively impact the employment potential of the Consumer Road, employment area of, if appropriate measures are not taken to limit the density and addressing traffic issues. Currently, Consumer Road employment area has very limited road grid system, being surrounded by major highways, although additional roadways and exits are planned within the property boundaries. However, these internal grids without proper exits will not benefit to relieve the traffic congestion being created due to overloading. The Consumer Road proposed secondary plan partially addresses this issue at the Whole Crown Place by creating a new municipal road at the southern boundary of 2450 Victoria Park Avenue. A fully developed intersection with Victoria Park Avenue and normalization of current 401 west ramp by MTO should be the only solution if a major development will be implemented at this site. Widening the Consumer's Road may be a requirement. However, Whole Crown Place should be maintained as a local road serving the properties within the circle. Traffic diversions through Whole Crown should be avoided. 2450 Victoria Park Avenue proposed development build form and massing of buildings are overpowering and does not contribute to the enhancement of existing neighborhoods and communities. The development should rethink.
Wrap up, you're past the 5.
Pardon?
If you could wrap up, you're past the 5 minutes.
Yes, I will wrap up. This is the last point. The building should have more spaces in between and less overpowering. I trust that the North York Community Council members will consider our points of view as vibrant community established 40 years ago, who contributed to the City of Toronto, Ontario, and Canada socially, politically, and economically. Finally, the developers' representatives were participants in the Consumer Next study, which took in excess of 2 years, and they were aware that the community sentiments were and what were recommendations of the report. It is incomprehensible that they would propose such a plan, knowing well there will be huge negative community response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, I have a question for you. There are 2 more deputies. Mr. Chitillian, a question for you from Councillor Cole.
My question is, point of order. Is it possible that these site-specific applications come up, that we could use the screen to maybe place a photo or a Google map of the area so that the councillor, staff, and the viewing public can see the actual site that the deputy is talking about? I think that would be very informative and helpful. Rather than having a blank screen there that is not being used, why not use it?
There you go.
And can we do Google Maps too? Is that possible? So we get a real live picture of it?
Well, I think we can. I think going forward we can discuss how we'd like to proceed in the future. There would have to be a sort of pattern to it. For instance, in this case, what we're looking at is a request for direction to provide opposition at the LPAT. We might want to treat it differently. You might want to get into Google Maps if we're doing the yaying or naying without appeal. But we have discussed this in the past, so we may wish as a council, as a community council, to get together and decide what our practice is once and for all.
Well, I think it would be,
We can accommodate as best we can today, and then maybe look at going forward, what is our exact procedure? Yeah.
yeah, especially in light of the fact the gentleman has pointed out some intersections, the interchange with the 401, Consumer Road, et cetera.
Right.
I think it would be really helpful.
I can,
Yeah.
in 1 minute, I can brief the
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We've already, but we have 2 more deputants to hear from, and you've taken 6. So, so we'll get through the deputations, and maybe we'll offline talk about going forward on every item what we want, because I agree with you. I generally Google Map myself on my iPad. Yeah.
It
Okay.
is 2019,
Thank you.
I think.
Is Harut Kasabian? Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harut Kasabian. I'm representing the St. Mary Armenian Church at 45 Old Crown Place. I'm the chairman of the board. Please bear with me. I'm just going to read a few things that I had put forward. The history. The church was established in 1984 and operated out of the Anglican Church at Bayview Avenue, north of Eglinton. Then the congregation decided to build a new church at 45 Holcomb Place, next to the Armenian Community Center, to serve the spiritual needs of the Toronto Armenian community. The church was designed by the late famous architect Cedric Bobby, a Jelian group, who are the designers of Rogers Center. The structure is an architectural gem, worthy of care and protection, and has iconic view from Highway 401, Victoria Park, and the whole neighborhood. There are 5 Armenian churches within the former city of Toronto, North York and Scarborough, and one of them is this one, St. Mary Armenian Church, and the population of around 30,000 people are being served by those 5 churches, and 10,000 of them really are members of this church. Back in 1989, when the plans were submitted for the building permit, there were height restrictions. We were not supposed to be more than 45 feet high. And 4 decades later, we are talking about high-rise buildings in that same area. We realize Toronto, being a modern city development, is unavoidable, and we are prepared as forward-thinking citizens to follow the participants and the requirements of the area. With the mixed use promoted at the fringes of the employment lands, we will be facing new challenges from traffic and noise issues, which will be undermining our religious and development community functions and practices. We are especially concerned about the nature of development forms that will be proposed for the surrounding areas on the east and west side of Victoria Park Avenue, which may limit, undermine, and sometimes even hinder freedom of our religious practices and education. The following, however, are the main concern issues and concerns raised in the proposed secondary plan for the Consumers Road employment lands. Traffic issues and the proposed new street north of the church boundary, while having the new proposed municipal road, may have its advantages to relieve the daily traffic jam, particularly at the rush hours, yet it also will present some negative effects on the congregation. Increased traffic, noise level, increased pollution, and reduced safety and security within the neighborhood are major concerns. Thus, the new road should be intended service only and should not be access to the Victoria Park Avenue. I'm trying to shorten my, considering the church structure being an architectural value to the city of Toronto, which may be added to the discovery list of Toronto, should not be blocked by high-rise buildings within the vicinity of Consumers Road and Victoria Park. The 6-story podium proposal of the secondary plan should be opposed. Podiums, and normally prevalent in tall buildings, are are no blocks of on-site should be considered as tall building site within the fringes of Consumers Road. Employment lands, particularly on the south side of Consumers Road, the OPA for mixed use specifically mentions mid-rise development, and the high-rise should not be considered as an option. The proposed density along Victoria Park Avenue should not be as high as the proposed 3.0. We realize that the provincial mandate of intensification along avenues are given, but higher densities will encourage applications for tall buildings, particularly when the 6-story podium are encouraged. The building design should also consider the social and safety aspects of the neighborhood, particularly establish sensitivity neighborhood. Density of 2.0 for mixed-use development should generate sufficient interest to the developer to come up with creative and measured building concept to fit the existing established neighborhoods. Okay, in conclusion then, although St. Mary Armenian Church is encouraged by the study of the Consumers Road employment area, yet we find that social, education, and service-oriented community needs are completely ignored in the study, particularly in case of well-established community services, education and religious institutions, which have exceeded
Fabian, I really do need you to wrap up.
in the area of decades. Okay.
Yeah.
Neighborhoods should not be evaluated only on economic benefits and analysis. They should be evaluated based on quality of social, educational, and public services evaluation. We, the St. Mary Armenian Church Board of Trustees, strongly suggest that the above recommendations are considered and the appropriate revisions are introduced in the proposed secondary plan. Thank you very much. Sorry taking a little bit more time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have 2 more deputants, but I'm going to have to be firm. I've gone well over the 5 minutes both times. We have 2 more deputants because another has registered. I'm going to have to ask that those deputants stay within the 5 minutes, and I will remind you, you can submit in writing. And because this is a request to oppose and continue working, I fully expect council will adopt that recommendation today. Rafi Sarkisian. Hi, good morning, Rafi.
Hello.
If you could stay within the 5.
I will.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rafi Sarkisian, and I'm the principal of the ARS Armenian Private School located at 50 Hall Crown and 45 Hall Crown Place. The subject property, 2450 Victoria Park, and the proposed development will directly threaten the existence of our school. With a student population of 650, there currently already is a challenge in entering and exiting Hall Crown Place in the mornings and afternoons during drop-off and pickup. Our school does not have bus service, as our students' population come from a variety of locations, some driving close to an hour. With adding over 3,000 potential residents, the proposed development will significantly increase the traffic, specifically at the same exact hours during which traffic already exists, without proposing a single viable or guaranteed solution. This significant increase in traffic will undoubtedly lead parents to reconsider their children's enrollment at our school, as they will have difficulty getting to work in mornings and going home in the evenings. The increased traffic, coupled with the inevitable frustration that will exist among commuters, will also pose a threat to the pedestrian traffic that currently exists. This threatens the safety of students and parents walking to or from school or crossing the street between campuses. This reckless project will have the utmost negative impact on our 40-year-old school, the only Armenian day school in Ontario. The school is established to not only deliver academic excellence, but to preserve the Western Armenian language, currently listed by UNESCO as an endangered language. This proposed project will endanger the existence of our school and thus the long-term viability of an already endangered language and culture. We do not want a repeat of what occurred at John Fisher Public School, where students were forced to transfer to another school for the duration of the construction of the buildings. We, as a community private school, do not have the luxury of moving our students and student body, the school and student body, to an alternate location during a large-scale construction as the one proposed, which would pose a safety risk for the most vulnerable, our 18-month-old to grade 12 students and our children. Our current students and alumni have had a profoundly positive impact on the community at large. The school has produced leaders in our communities who have contributed to the growth and well-being of our city. Let us respect the needs of this long-established school and ensure its longevity so that it can continue to serve the community and continue its exemplary mission. I trust that this council will consider our appeal and direct the developer to revise their submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, councillors, we have one more request to the clerks to depute. Harpiat Avazian. Oh, there we are. Good morning. 5 minutes, if you please.
Good morning. Rafi has covered the majority of what my concern is. I don't represent anybody except my own grandchildren. The safety of my grandchildren is extremely important. When I pick up my children, my grandchildren, and the safety and the children that leave the property, if we're going to increase the traffic to that amount, then afterwards we're going to have a massive, massive chaos, and the safety of our children is very important. Please consider our children, my grandchildren, and consider what is that amount. Right now, the church, the community, the school, all of this brings in massive amount of traffic. When I pick up, it takes me more than 5-6 minutes to leave the property. And plus all of these buildings that's going to go up, what is the safety of my children? Right now it's only 2, but I'm hoping there's going to be 4 and more. Consider the children. Afterwards, it's too late to hold a vigilant. Oh, I'm sorry, this happened, we didn't think of that. Consider all of our children and a community. Thank you. It's less than 5 minutes.
Oh, thanks so much. Councillors, if there are no questions of staff, I'm going to go ahead and speak as the items in my ward. Okay. One of the councillors came and asked me, the deputants will appreciate that he was shocked that there was a residential application on this spot. I'm moving the staff recommendations today, which are, because this was registered for appeal, so it's before LPAT now. The request for direction from staff is to continue to oppose and to continue to work. I just wanted to speak for a second because this one is very complicated. If I had my druthers, we wouldn't be looking at this application on this spot, but some councillors will remember the review of employment lands in the municipal comprehensive review to look at where there could be mixed use allowed adjacent to employment lands. And in the case of Consumers Road, by the time it all was done and dusted and came back from the province, the municipal comprehensive review allowed mixed use not just along Sheppard Avenue, but then down Victoria Park as far as this site. The applicant had already expressed an interest in developing the property, and so I guess they thought they were helping us and just adding it to the zone. But in fact, it is a problem for all the reasons that you've heard from residents. And so staff continue to work diligently. The applicant has waded through the Consumers Next process, knows what Consumers Next has suggested, but that proposal is also under appeal at the moment, and so the LPAT hearings are going ahead on this specific application. The issues outlined by residents are pretty much, to a word, precisely the issues that staff are working on with the applicant now, and so I'm hoping that you will uphold their request to allow them to continue to oppose until those issues can be resolved. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the staff recommendations? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. And that takes us unfortunately to item number 5, which is also in my ward. Item number 5 is a request for direction report on official plan amendment 2600 Don Mills Road. We have a deputant to speak on this too, actually, if the applicant should decide to speak, but it is a similar situation in which it is a request for direction to continue to oppose at the LPAT until issues can be resolved. But there is a deputant. I can't actually blame having 2 items on the agenda after such a long time on the new part of the ward, because both of these are in my previous area of representation. But the deputant who's registered, you won't see on your sheet, is David Reed. Mr. Reed, if you want to come forward. Mr. Reed is a resident west of the site at St. Gabriel Village condo. Mr. Reed, did you still want to speak? Okay.
So I don't get to speak after the developer.
Yeah, we're going to have to stick to the 5 minutes for the rest of the day.
Okay, I'll be less than 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are about infrastructure. As the chair said, my wife and I own a condominium in St. Gabriel Village, which is a Shane Bageye development on Sheppard. And I'm taking this opportunity to speak because there's a concern amongst residents that follows the thematic message you're hearing from some of the other deputants about the concern we have for the infrastructure impacts of development in the city, and specifically for our case, Ward 17. So the pace of development without regard to the cumulative impact on the infrastructure is a concern. So during the municipal campaign, the mayor, to my surprise, when I asked him about does the city have regard to cumulative impact, gave the example of City Place, where you remember several years ago there was a power outage in that large development, and it was reported just as an electrical failure. To my surprise, the mayor reported to me, or to us, that that reason was because it was an older electrical cable that, as the buildings were added to that site, gradually got to the point where that cable was fried. And nobody had realized that that was going to happen. So you're adding straws to the camel's back as you go along. So it's not the concern about the development itself, it's the concern about what is it going to do to the infrastructure that the community already depends on. So in that case, we're talking about the hard and the soft infrastructure. So water, sewers, electricity, hospitals, social services, emergency vehicle response time because of traffic, the traffic buildup, particularly at intersections. And so unfortunately, and this is a comment that I've heard from our residents, and I'm involved in another project that has 10 condominiums that have similar issues about another development. Neither the city nor the development community, the city, have done a good job at telling the residents what are going to be the impacts. People are concerned, is the water pressure going to drop if the new development comes along? How are the sewers going to handle it? How close are they to capacity? Those are pretty straightforward questions. If the traffic is this now, what is it going to be after? Is it going to be 10% more, 15% more, whatever it is? So my only comment in closing up, and you're going to get more time available, the comment is that it's an opportunity for both the development community and the city staff to work more closely with the communities they're in and let them know what those impacts are. Unfortunately, city staff are sometimes caught up on regulations, the requirements under appeals that they can't say this or they can't say that. The developer comes along and makes a presentation, but it's flashed up on small boards ahead, and then they say, oh, you have X amount of time to talk to. It's not sitting down with the community and telling them the kind of things that we're interested in. In the other project we're involved in, there was a working group, but it didn't involve all of the citizens in the area. So I'm just saying the feedback that I've heard is there's an opportunity for both the development community and for the city to let their citizens know what are the impacts going to be. So particularly in the infrastructure that I've talked about. The design of the buildings is another issue, but obviously if you go from, in this case, 19 to 39 stories as a proposal, the question you're going to have as a common sense question is what's going to happen to the infrastructure? And so far, we don't hear a lot of that feedback. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any, there's no questions to the deputy. The representative of the applicant is registered to speak. Mr. Goldberg, did you still want to address the committee? Okay. Councillors, if there are no questions of staff, this is the next item, 25, which is, or number 5, I should say, which is 2600 Don Mills Road. Okay. If there are no questions of staff, I'll just speak quickly again. Councillors, this is one that we should definitely pay attention to. You'll note on the map that there seem to be a bunch of parcels that all sort of bump into each other, and there are no roads between them. These are towers left over from the old. Speaking of dating ourselves, Councillor Cole, these go back to when. Oh, these go that we're right at the corner of Sheppard and Don Mills, one of Canada's most populous intersections. Oh, right beside it is St. Matthew's Church. St. Gabriel's is further west. It's west of Leslie. Yeah. I'm moving staff recommendations today to continue to oppose, but to continue to work on this because there are 3 apartment buildings who all came forward a long time ago in the 60s, and if you had an acre and a half, that would get you to where you could, with your very low density, build an apartment building. But you did it by leaving a whole lot of ground. That's the tower in the park syndrome. So what this is a situation where one applicant is taking the leftover land in his tower in the park land and building another building. Tower renewal policy contemplated that, but here the contemplation is 39 stories. So there's some work to do. That's why the recommendation before you from staff is to continue to oppose at LPAT, and there are future hearings later in the year. We hope that you will hear better news and something that meets the infrastructure need and that council can live with while still meeting our housing needs. So with that said, are there any other comments? Seeing none, I've moved the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And that takes us out of my items. So councillors, we're now skipping ahead to, we've done all the items in between, and we're going to move to item number 24. We have no other, which does not have a deputant registered. Item number 24 is refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 2592 Yonge Street. That is at Albertus Avenue. Councillor Cole, this is yours. I have no deputations, so if you have directions. So the staff recommendations are moved. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Well, that's going to keep us on schedule. Item number 25 is a front yard parking appeal at 19 LeMay Road, and this is in Councillor Robinson's area.
Yes. Madam Chair, we actually are going to defer this item to the March meeting, and all the parties and the applicants, everybody was advised this week that that was the plan. So there should be no deputants here because
that's right.
All interested parties were advised. We're going to defer it.
So you have a motion to defer the item before you. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Well, if we're going to go that fast, I'm going to have to keep track of getting ahead of the timed item schedule. Item number 26 is an application to remove a private tree at 18 Glen Allen Road. That is Councillor Robinson's ward.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I'm not sure what to do on this one. I wouldn't mind, if you don't mind, asking a couple questions to staff on this private tree.
Okay, we'll bring staff to the floor. Questions of staff, Councillor Robinson.
So you've denied the request for the permit to remove this tree, and I'm just wondering what the rationale was or your position. I mean, I read the report, but just, you know, if you could share more with us.
Through the chair, this denial was based on the fact that the tree is in good botanical and structural health, The stated reason for removal was for landscaping, which is not covered through the bylaw.
Okay, so your recommendation to this council is to uphold your recommendations to preserve the tree?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, then I will do that. I'd like to move staff recommendations, Madam Chair.
Okay, staff recommendations are before us. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Item number 27, what time is it? Yep, we're still there. 27, similarly, is an application to remove a private tree at 45 Addison Crescent, and that is in Councillor Minnan Wong's ward. Okay, questions of staff? Councillor Minnan Wong?
Yes. So, in the report, it says,
Oh, sorry, Councillor Minnan Wong, we were moving so fast. There is a deputant. Did you
Okay.
want to hear the deputant first?
Sure.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Eng, Leslie Eng.
Okay. Good morning, councillors. My name
morning.
is Leslie Eng, and I reside at 45 Addison Crescent in North York since 1991. I'm here to appeal the decision to deny removing a walnut tree in my backyard based on allergies. I have two daughters that suffer from severe food allergies, such as, but not limited to, eggs, dairy, shellfish, and all nuts. They are both anaphylactic to peanuts and must carry an EpiPen at all times. My eldest has asthma and requires 3 inhalers. They both suffer from eczema all year round. If a drop of milk lands on my daughter's arm, she will develop a welt. If she touches an egg, she will develop a welt. If an allergen is ingested, it will produce hives and welts on their skin throughout parts of their bodies and get stomach cramps, swelling of lips, tongue, throat, and it will also affect the breathing of my eldest since she also has asthma. From 2001 to 12, my eldest had been a frequent visitor to the emergency room at North York General Hospital. When she went away to university, her skin cleared up dramatically and she did not go to an emergency room or seek medical professional for her asthma. We are now realizing that the walnut tree could be affecting them, and this is supported by the family doctor. My kids are allergic to walnuts, and I have an allergy test results from the early 2000s to the present showing a long history of their walnut allergy. I have a doctor's note recommending the tree be removed, as it has been identified as a source attributing to their eczema and asthma. My kids will not knowingly eat a walnut, but as you know, most people that die from peanut allergens are accidental. Having the walnut tree nearby is an accident waiting to happen because in the summer, as the squirrels eat the walnuts, the walnut husk and walnut bits fall everywhere. You could be walking in my backyard and breathe in the walnut bits that squirrels drop, or it could land my barbecue while I am cooking. Nobody objected in my neighborhood about removing this tree, and I have a letter from my neighbor in support of this walnut tree removal. The general manager of parks does not understand the severity of my kids' allergies, but he is concerned about the Toronto's tree canopy, so I will replace the walnut tree with 5 trees upon approval. In summary, please grant me the permit to remove the walnut tree for the sake of my children's health, our enjoyment of the outdoors, as well as our neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Eng. Councilor Minnan-Wong? But a question of the deputant? Yes, go ahead.
So did you explain this extensively to the staff when you put this application in?
I submitted the allergy test results as well with the application.
Okay.
And the doctor's note.
And the doctor's note. So that is kind of captured only in the report to the extent that there's one sentence that says the application for tree removal has been made to address the property owner's concerns with respect to the potential for an allergic reaction to walnuts. Did you read the report?
Yes, that was not my
That's
writing.
the only sentence that really actually,
Yeah.
where there's any commentary about the allergic reaction, but it doesn't really talk to the severity of circumstances. Is that
I thought the test results, the allergy test results, and the doctor's note would suffice.
No, I'm just saying that they really didn't kind of... Are you satisfied with how little they put in this report about your family's allergies?
No, I'm not.
No. All right.
Well, a lot of people don't understand food allergies.
Right.
You know, unless you know somebody with it and live with it, people are just insensitive to food allergies.
Okay, that's my only question.
Okay. Are there any other councillors with questions? I do have questions to staff
I
myself.
have questions of staff too.
Oh, okay. No other questions of the deputy? Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ring. You can sit down. Okay, so I'll bring staff to the floor. Councilman Wong, do you have questions for staff?
Yeah, so in the body of the report, it says that there was a report written on February 27th about, I guess, walnut trees or tree-bearing, or trees that bear nuts or fruit. And what did that report say?
The report stated that these trees would be treated as other trees, so they would also fall within the bylaw.
So there would be no consideration
special
giving,
treatment for them.
sorry, Madam Chair, there would be no consideration given when a family lives nearby or lives on the same property where they have people who reside at that place who have severe allergic reactions, that tree would just be treated like any other tree.
The report did go through City Council and was approved, so this is the...
No, Madam Chair, I'm asking for him to tell me what was in the report, not just that, I know it was approved by City Council, it says that, I read that in that paragraph. My question is, you said that the report, he summarized, and I'm giving a chance to
Yes,
provide more
I'm having trouble understanding your exact question myself.
My question is, does it give any consideration to families who have kids with allergic reactions or people with allergic reactions to distinguish the need to destroy a tree when someone will be injured and harmed a great deal?
Through the chair, no, it does not.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Cole, go ahead.
Yes, the staff?
Yep.
Yes, I know in the past, this has been quite a common sort of plea on behalf of residents who didn't want the tree. They would claim allergic reaction, and they would get a letter from a doctor. I'm not saying in this case this isn't a serious situation. How common are these requests to get rid of a tree as a result of allergic reaction by the homeowners or the residents of a home?
Through the chair, they come up. They're not, I wouldn't say that it's a regular occurrence, but we do see several throughout the year.
And the black walnut, my understanding it is that they are quite, let's say, significant trees in terms of their longevity, and they're essentially endangered in a way that we're losing a lot of black walnuts. Is that the case?
The black walnut is a native tree to our area. It's a large growing canopy tree with a wide spreading crown. It's not endangered, so the walnut blight that came through in the 30s and destroyed the English walnut tree does not affect the black walnut. So it's a healthy population within Toronto.
One final question. In terms of the applicant has said that they would replace that tree, which is part of the canopy, with 5 other trees. What is usually the procedure in terms of accepting that kind of offer from, in this case, the homeowner?
Through the chair, generally for a non-construction application such as this, based upon condition which it does not qualify for, the replacement would be 1-to-1, a 5-to-1. Our department isn't a deal-making department, so we always appreciate people going above and beyond their planting requirements. But if council or community council deemed it appropriate, then we would follow the 5-to-1, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fillion, questions?
Yes. Has public health weighed in on the extent to which there could be a health danger to someone with a nut allergy by having a tree of this sort in their backyard? Have we consulted with them at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to place myself next, and then Councillor Minnan-Wong wants a second round opportunity. There are two types of decision-making here. You have to decide what to recommend based on policy. Politicians can decide based on wherever our deliberations take us. But if you had to devise a policy that contemplated tree removal on the basis of allergy, how would you go about it? Where could you draw the line? Would it have to be on your property? What if it was next door? How would you create a policy around allergies?
Through the chair, that's a very good question. It becomes very difficult. Many people have an allergy to pollen, so would that become an issue that we'd want to deal with? And tree pollen comes out.
My grandson has an allergy to pollen, yeah.
It's quite common. And with the black walnuts, you're correct. They tend to move all over the neighborhood. The squirrels find them a very important food source, so they are moved throughout the neighborhood. So if this tree is removed, the likelihood of a tree this size has offspring in the area is very high. This nut is often planted by squirrels, and as they try to keep them for the winter, and then they end up growing. So it may reduce the prevalence of the black walnuts, but likely not remove them within the neighborhood. So the caution that the applicant and their children would have to put forward would still be relevant. To answer your question directly, it would be very difficult, and I would get the policy department involved.
Okay, so you'd have difficulty deciding where is the tree, how close is it? How would you decide where to draw the line in the policy on severity of allergy?
Through the chair, that is a very difficult question that I would involve public health, I guess.
Exactly. So it's very, the current policy doesn't help you. To develop a policy would be very difficult for you. But this is a place where councillors just have to go case by case currently.
Yeah, through the chair, yes, I do believe that the difficulty in establishing that type of where to draw the line is likely what resulted in the policy now, which states no trees shall be removed for this.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Councillor Minnan-Wong, you had an additional question?
I did. I have additional two questions. Councillor Fillion asked the first one about not the Board of Health, but the Public Health.
Yeah.
What their view is on this, because I think that's really important. The second question is, well, it's in two parts. The first part is, did the report that was written on these black walnut trees and their removal discuss any of the legal consequences should someone be injured as a result of us not allowing a tree to be removed and them becoming injured, sick, or worse? Did that report discuss that?
Through the chair, unfortunately, I don't have the report with me, and I'm not able to answer that question.
Okay, so then the second question is, and this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So what happens if this committee and the council says no to this tree removal, and something unfortunate happens as a result of that tree being there, and the worst thing happens, it's that someone who has a horrible tree allergy, nut allergy, that we're aware of, that something unfortunate happens, would the city be liable for something like this?
Through the chair, a very specific case, obviously I can't comment on because it could be the subject of future litigation.
Yeah.
But as a general concept, the city has the ability to develop policy. The city has the ability to develop policy, including informed policy, about tree removal and when trees should be removed. So any defense that the city would mount would be on that basis, that it's a policy decision throughout the city.
So our policy is essentially to treat the walnut like any other tree, and so we would be held to account on treating the walnut tree like every other tree, even in homes where people have nut allergies.
That would form part of any defense, similar to a situation where we're asked about potential tree removal as a result of branches falling. We have the ability to rely on staff for those types of decisions.
Okay, I'll speak.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, Councillor Minnan-Wong to speak?
Yeah, thank you. You know, this is interesting to the extent that on a policy level, I think there's clearly a part missing in this, especially as Councillor Fillion raised the health issues and what's involved there. The second thing is the liability issues if something were to happen. There seems to be like an unclear area, number one. And in the absence of getting clear direction, I'm prepared to move that we allow for the removal of the tree. I listened to the deputant. Very convincing to me. I think his concern is real for his children. The health concerns, he said, I think are significant and substantial. And while this committee and the council doesn't like to remove trees, I believe what he says, and he's provided doctor's notes, so I think his claims are credible. And based on all that information right now, I think that while, it may be a nice tree, that when it's a choice between trees and people, I'll pick people.
Those are your comments?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other speakers? I'm putting myself down. Councillor Fillion?
Yes, I can't support granting this, but I would certainly support deferral of it and getting a report from public health, and I'd be glad to move that now or at council or the local councillor. But I'm not clear in my own mind. Certainly the father's concern is real because it's his concern, but is it, objectively valid? And I just don't know the answer, the extent to which somebody who has a nut allergy is at risk because they have a walnut tree in their backyard. I just don't know. And if there is a significant risk, then I would agree that significant health risk would trump the desire to retain a big, beautiful tree. But, we don't have that information, so I would be happy to postpone a decision until we have it.
Question of the mover, Councillor Minnan-Wong?
No, I wasn't going to move it. I'm not making a motion.
You're not putting the deferral before us? Okay, we misunderstood.
Well, I'm just saying I would be happy to support a deferral.
Oh, okay.
But I wouldn't be supporting the removal, that's all.
Okay, so you're putting your hand up to speak? Okay. So Councillor Cole, and then I'll put myself on.
Yeah, I just wonder if I could move a motion that we defer any decision until we get a report back on the Board of Health, giving us a scientific response to this, because we're not going to be, if the tree's not going to be in bloom or at this time of year, so we still have time to cut it down if council so decides to proceed that way. So we could ask for a deferral until we get a report back from the Board of Health, because this is going to come up again. So I would like their informed, background on this.
I'm just gonna, based on what you've just said, I'm just gonna ask the clerk to clarify for us. I think you'd need a separate motion. There's deferral, but can a community council request information from public health staff? It would be staff, I think, instead of the board. Can we in a separate motion move that request? Okay. Yeah. So you're putting that on the table, Councillor Cole? Yes. Clerks are clear on the motion? Okay. Councillor Minnan-Wong?
What our liabilities would be in the event that
okay.
someone was
Yep.
hurt,
Okay.
or they're as a result of,
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Francine come up with the motion.
Okay. I still have myself down to speak.
Carry on.
And then you may wish to speak at the end of that. When we vote, I'm going to be voting for a motion to get those reports. I simply caution this. You know, I'm happy to get those reports because councillors want those. The difficulty that I have is in relation to the questions that I asked. Part of the reason that allergies are not contemplated in the private tree bylaw, as I understand it from way back when we created it, is this is a very difficult area to move into, because where do you draw the line? I have a grandson who gets shots every week, every spring and summer, for pollen allergies and all the rest of them. Should he stop getting the shots and we'll just cut the trees down that bother him? Because it's not just the ones in his backyard, it's all trees. Should we take away any offending trees that might be near his house? I think what I'm illustrating is that for staff to come up with a policy and draw a line and pick what allergy is severe enough to do it, and where you draw the line. Does it have to be in your property? Do you have the right to remove a tree in your neighbor's yard because you're allergic to it? That would be very difficult for them. It's why all policies, and the solicitor told us, we have the right to set a policy. And as far as I understand, once we've adopted a policy as a council, as long as we make decisions that adhere to that policy, we're indemnified. When you go into the gray area, that's where you really better get a report from the solicitor. And so we're asking for one here. So I'm happy to get those reports and make a case-by-case decision on this tree on Addison Crescent. I'm just saying up front before we get those reports, I hope it doesn't lead to, we're now going to go down the road of revisiting the entire private tree bylaw and try and figure out where we draw the line on allergies, because it's a line that would be very hard to draw. But we will always retain that power to make a good case-by-case decision. Those are my comments. Councillor Fillion?
Mover, I think the reason I didn't move a motion is because I don't have wording ready. And so Councillor Cole, I'm just wondering what your wording is, just because my concern is that, you know, are we asking for public health to comment on this particular tree? Are we asking them to comment on the city's policy? You know, because they will take our request fairly literally. They will report on what we ask them to report on. So we need, in my view, we need to be careful on the wording of our request, and so I'm just wondering if you have a way that resolves that in doing something that's come up kind of quickly.
Councillor Cole, if we're going beyond, does this specific tree have the ability to cause said allergies, or branching into very general areas, we then get into it maybe not even being in order. What did you contemplate? Would you like clerks to read back how they took your motion?
Yes, if clerk could read back
the clerks have a draft, or are you still unclear?
So can we just hold this down till work together appropriate wording in response to Councillor Fillion's question too, which is a good one?
I'm just checking on where we are in terms of timed items, and yeah, we're past the time of all of those. Yep.
Why don't we just vote on my motion to destroy the tree or not? And if it fails, why don't we send it to council without recommendation, and then we'll have X number of weeks to come up with the proper motion.
Without report requests?
Well,
No, we could add the report request to council.
That gives them enough time for the legal department or the Board of Health to seriously think about this. That's my guess.
Well, the advice that clerks will probably give us is that if you place those report requests now, then you don't have to worry about what happens at council. You can simply wait for those reports.
Well, will the motion be report to council?
I think we're, yeah. I think we just demonstrated that Councillor Cole is right. How about we stand this item down, and you guys come up with that, okay? So that is item number 27 that we're standing down. I think if we're going to do something this creative, we really do want to get it right. So we'll put that item, I'm sorry, Mr. Rain, but we'll probably put that item to the end of the agenda so that there's time to craft it. But I think we're still making headway. So, councillors, I'm going to move on to item number 28, which is another application to remove a private tree, this time at number 5 Verse End Drive. Councillor Minnan-Wong, do you have time to speak to this item while we struggle with that motion? Okay, I'll bring staff to the floor. This is item number 28.
Provided by the applicant?
Through the chair, yes.
And what did the arborist report say?
It lists the vigor and vitality of the tree as fair to good.
Sorry about that. I got it.
Yeah.
Through the chair, it lists the vigor and vitality of the tree is fair to good, and the structure of the tree is fair to good. It goes on to state the crown has been elevated to allow for lawn mowing. And then it states the tree has some damage due to cytospora canker, but the vigor of the tree is holding the cytospora canker in check at this point. And then the recommendations are to remove the tree because it's too close to the house, the driveway, and the hydro lines.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Those are your questions. Or any other questions of staff on this one? Seeing none. Councillor Minnan-Wong, did you want to speak to it?
No.
Are you moving staff's recommendations?
No.
All right. As the chair, I will move the staff recommendation, which is to refuse the removal of the tree. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, item number 29 is, I believe, yes. Item number 29 is the one and only item by Councillor Pasternak that he is suggesting deferral. He has some residents who haven't been contacted. This is the application for a fence exception at 34 Danby Avenue. I'm moving deferral of the item to the next meeting of Community Council. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So that is the true end of Councillor Pasternak's schedule. Councillors, we're moving on to item number 30, which is a request for fence exemption. This is a pool enclosure at 8 Fidelia Avenue, and we have a deputant to speak to this item. Mr. John Bell is here. Mr. Bell? Good morning, Mr. Bell. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry, I should mention that Mr. Bell is not, he's not on your green sheets. He registered this morning. He's from Bona Vista Pools.
Yeah, thank you. And this is Jen Saunders, the owner. The pool fence enclosure has changed over the years. Back in 2008-9, you only had to have your perimeter of the property fenced with self-closing, self-latching gates. In 2008 or 9, they introduced a new fence enclosure where you can't enter the pool area from the house without going through a gate. So that's been the norm for about the last 8 or 9 years. The gates that we're proposing at the door has been approved and accepted and was changed by the city somewhere around August of this year. We weren't made aware of the change, but these gates that we're proposing on the doors have been approved for the prior 8 years. So we want to go back to these doors. You can see that with infill housing, the distance from the backyards are getting smaller and smaller. And to put a fence in between the pool and the house cuts off all existing patio areas, and it makes the patio useless. So these doors are, up until August, pool legal, And previously, the homeowner had to have a lock on the inside of the door, 5 feet off the floor, and we're prepared to do that again.
Okay, those are your comments. Are there any questions of the deputant? I just have some of my own. I'm wondering if you could clarify, because I'm looking at it now. So when you say previously this was approved, this is a full house reno?
No, it's an existing family dwelling, but that pool has been added.
The pool was added.
Right.
But you said the approval for this pool gate is 8 years old? That's what I'm confused about.
No, the city allowed it up until a recent change, which was, I think, in August. And we applied for our application in September to.
Okay. So the gate was not there previously?
No.
But had it been, the city would have allowed it?
Correct.
Okay. I think I understand you now. I cannot tell from the drawings, if you could just, there's a picture of what a gate would look like, and then there is a picture of the house at the back, and it has 2 sets of French doors. Are you proposing that there would be gates on all of them?
On all 3.
Okay. And are there any windows?
Not that come into the bylaw, no.
Oh, okay. Councillors, I will remind you, Councillor Cole is still with us in the room. It's very easy to lose quorum in the new Doug Ford-size council, so we have to be careful of that. So there are no windows that would be...
No windows that aren't complying.
That aren't compliant?
The door is the only thing that's non-complying. The windows can only open to a certain amount. 3.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Councillor Robbins, do you have questions of the deputant?
No, I have no questions. I was just going to move a motion.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I do have questions of staff, however. I don't know if anyone else does. Okay. Thank you. We'll move to questions of staff now, so you can take your seats. So if I have staff to the floor, there you are. We always end up in a gray area where we're talking about locking off the door of the house as opposed to having the fence. In this case, they're talking about gates that are of a certain height. Does the sample we're looking at match what you expect to see in the plans? And if so, why do we still have a concern?
Good morning. Through you, Madam Chair. Just to be clear that the section of the bylaw that we're talking about says if the wall of any building or any portion of it forms part of the pool enclosure, there shall be no access to the enclosed pool area through the wall. So that has not changed. What the gentleman is referring to is for lack of a better word, we'll call it an accommodation that we were making previously, where these gates could be installed. Since that time, however, there was a legal opinion with our executive director, and then a direction came to staff saying we would no longer make these accommodations.
Right.
So therefore, they're required to have a 4th fence. Now, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in their actual permit, it appears that there was a 4th fence in their drawings, and that was what was approved. And there's also added to their permit, their approved permit was just little caveats that say that there are to be no openings in the wall. So since that point, they have changed and prefer to have the gates. Unfortunately, our direction is that because of the safety issue, through a legal review, we are no longer accepting those gates. Hence the reason for the refusal.
Okay. And it is difficult for us to tell by the drawings. We're not architects. Was a site visit made?
Yes, absolutely. The supervisor that wrote the report was at the site.
Okay,
He's
so
here if
it's
you
the
have any
opinion
questions.
of staff, whether if it's, using the new fancy glass fencing or whatever, is the size of this yard, because it looks like it's on quite a lovely corner lot there. Is it the opinion of staff that there is an ability to put a structural fence around the pool as opposed to just gating the house?
Yes, there is.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
quite a large lot, I've been told by the supervisor. And then the issue, again, lies with the safety from the inside.
I'm sorry, but once we go into committee, then we can't go back out, okay? Yeah, sorry, but if it wasn't submitted, we have to work with what's submitted once we're in committee. Thanks, yeah, okay. Okay, those are my questions. If there are no other questions of staff, I'm going to go to Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, so I know this family, and they've been very active and engaged on other local community issues. I know they're very responsible and safety-minded, so I feel very comfortable approving their request. And I would just ask clerks to give me some help on how I phrase that, if I can simply say approve the request of the applicant, or if the clerk could just advise me on how I do that. Is that what is that? Okay, that's the guidance I'm looking for, thank you. So recommendation number 2, I would move based on the fact that I think there's been a lot of background work done here and homework done.
Okay, so are there any questions of the mover? I'm going to do just what I always do in order that I have the ability of voting for it myself. I want to be consistent on pool fences always. I am absolutely driven by the danger to children and nothing else. But I did ask questions of staff before moving recommendation number 1. I did ask questions of staff. I always look for, if a site visit was made, there are a lot of innovations that have been made in pool fencing. Glass fencing can be incredibly attractive. I've seen some really good applications of it. So while it can be costly, it makes me feel less guilty when I say we really have to stick to this bylaw. There really is only one really safe way to make sure that this owner or any future owners are never having to retrieve a tragedy from a swimming pool, and that is to fence the pool itself. And so the ward councillor has moved recommendation number 2 with conditions, and I'm placing recommendation number 1 on the table as well, simply so that I can vote for it. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Which recommendation would we vote for first? Number 2 was placed first? Okay. So recommendation number 2, councillors, placed by the local councillor, is to grant the application for the proposed pool enclosure without conditions, direct and require that the installation be maintained in a good state of repair, et cetera, et cetera. All in favor of that recommendation? Opposed? Recommendation 2 carries. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is item 30 now. Madam Clerk, we got going too fast, didn't we? We're on to item number 31, which is a request for fence exemption on a side yard at 10 Old York Mills Road. This is in Councillor Robinson's area as well.
Come down.
That is, yeah. I don't, oh, we do have, sorry about that. Mr. Booth, sorry about that. Okay.
No problem. Thank you to the chair and the council for allowing me to speak today. I am the president of the condominium board at 10 Old York Mills Road, and we applied for a exemption to the fence bylaw because of our past history in the building of undesirables, climbing the low fence that we have now, and we've had numerous trespassers on the north and southwest corners that jump the fence and loiter on the property. We have a gazebo area at the corner that was previously enjoyed by all residents, but the furniture had to be removed because of trespassers loitering in the gazebo and littering the area. The residents have expressed concerns regarding break-ins to the building in the past, leading to increased cameras being installed on the property. A higher fence would make it difficult for trespassers to enter the property. Trespassers require the security guards to leave their post to investigate, leading to further gaps in the security of the building. And the proximity to the subway station allows easy access from undesirable persons. And for that reason, we think it would be in the best interest to be allowed to raise our fence.
Okay. Are there questions of the applicant? Seeing none, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm going to move recommendation 2 on this. This has been an ongoing problem for a long time, and this is a way to try to address the security issues that these residents are facing. As you've heard, there's been a lot of issues with trespassers, proximity to the subway, so this would really aid in dealing with a number of challenges they've had as in their neighborhood. So I hope council will support me in supporting them, and I'm moving item recommendation 2, grant the application for the side yard fence, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Are there questions of the mover, or are you ready to vote? Councillor Minnan-Wong? Okay, we have a motion on the table. We will go back. We'll bring staff to the floor. Councillor Minnan-Wong?
How high, it says they want to go above the bylaw, which bylaw is 2 meters, yes? So,
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it's 2 meters.
so 2 meters is what? How many feet is that?
6.5 feet.
6.5 feet. And that, will that go on top of the, there seems to be some sort of elevated curb here?
There is a small retaining wall, and yes, it would.
So that retaining wall looks like it's a couple of feet, yes?
So if I may, the retaining wall is 0.9 meters high.
The retaining wall is 0.9
Oh, sorry,
meters.
I'm sorry. Where's the retaining wall? Oh, it's on the, yeah. It's on the
Looks like it's about 18 inches or 2 feet or something.
So the total, I don't have the actual retaining wall, so the total between the retaining wall and the new proposed fence would be 3 meters.
3 meters? How many feet is 3 meters high?
Oh, I missed that math.
It's in the report.
How many feet is that? Sorry.
We'll get that.
That's like about 12 feet or something?
But the proposed is a wrought iron fence, so it's not a board on board. You'd still be able to see through it.
Right, so...
It's 9 feet, 10 inches.
Sorry?
9 feet, 10 inches.
So they would be able to build to 9 feet?
Yes, there's also a difference in grade. So I believe giving the average height of about 2.7 meters.
So, and how high do they want to go? How much higher?
That is their proposed.
And how much are they allowed to build total?
The bylaw allows for 2 meters.
2 meters. Theirs is?
In total, if you,
Well, I just want to do apples to apples. Ours,
so without taking the average grade, it would be 3 meters. But because there is a differential grade, on the average, it's 2.75 meters approximately in height.
Theirs is 2.75.
They're proposed.
They're proposed,
Yes.
and they're allowed 2 meters plus that retaining wall, is that right?
No, 2 meters with the retaining wall.
2 meters, so the difference is 6 meters versus, you said 10?
9 feet.
6 feet versus 10 feet.
It would be.
6 feet versus
right.
10 feet. I see. And this isn't this is how the fence right now, which is a lot shorter, right? So one would assume that they're hopping the fence because it's easily hoppable.
Correct.
Okay. And it's going to be a wrought iron, yes?
That is their proposed, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, those are the questions of staff. Seeing no other questions of staff, you still have a motion before you. Councillor Minnan-Wong, are you moving any other recommendations?
I'm not going to, only to the extent that it's a high-traffic area, and if it was a board-on-board fence, I'd maybe have something to say about it.
Yeah.
But if it's a wrought iron fence and, you know, I'm prepared to support the motion and grant the exemption.
Okay, are there any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. So councillors, those were the scheduled items. I have two items that were held before we get to the additionals. Councillor Minnan-Wong, I think there are probably some staff waiting around to find out about item number 8. Do you have direction
O'Connor
on
Drive?
that now? Yes.
You have to ask if anybody wants to speak, because I'm suspecting you might get one.
Is there anybody who wants to speak on 1861 O'Connor Drive?
No, I think you have to call for it, right?
Oh, okay.
He doesn't have to. I'm not asking.
Oh, right. Mr. Goldberg, did you want to make comment on this? This is their preliminary report on 1861. We'll allow it since he did not comment on
He's
an
waiting
item
this long.
earlier.
I didn't think it was just, well, maybe it was just to hear us, but I thought he might want to say something.
Members of committee, I'm Michael Goldberg, the planning consultant for this application. The only thing I need to say really is that there's ongoing work on the application, and there's ongoing work relating to a proposed secondary plan in the Scarborough district that was proposed to be expanded into the North York district, but that's been deferred. There are road issues that do affect our client's property, and hopefully together we can come together for a resolution that is going to, one, permit the development while enabling the city to have their road infrastructure that isn't a burden financially on the city.
Okay.
So it's a balance really, and it like many of the other applications that were before you today, there's an ongoing process.
Right. Okay. Questions of the applicant? Seeing none?
I'll ask questions of staff.
Okay, thank you so much. Councillor Minnan-Wong, questions of staff?
Yeah, so this property is affected by the proposed Scarborough secondary plan, yes?
Not, it may be affected, but it's
Yeah.
premature to determine that now because no decisions have been made on the Golden Mile secondary plan review. All that has been done to date is some preliminary proposals with regards to potential road network plans and a possible realignment of Victoria Park and O'Connor, if they were to proceed, would potentially impact these lands. But that hasn't been in any way endorsed by City Council at this point. It's just a proposal.
Right, so through you, Madam Chair, I saw a map of where the new O'Connor Drive would be redirected, and it's right through the middle of this property, right?
The map you're referring to is a proposal, a staff proposal at this point, but you're correct.
Yeah.
That particular proposal shows a potential realignment of O'Connor through this property.
So if they put this application forward and they got this, so in the event that that takes place, which is what staff are looking at right now, the city would be in a position where they would have to expropriate for the road right through that property. Is that an unreasonable statement?
There's many ways this could unfold. Certainly through the Golden Mile study, if it's council's wish to change the official plan roads plan to realign O'Connor with Victoria Park, number one, they would have to do an official plan amendment to illustrate that. And then once that's in place, a number of things can happen. Number one, a landowner, including the subject landowner, could appeal that to the LPAT if they're not happy with that. And there's other methods, including expropriation, but also negotiations with the landowner to purchase the property, or there might be another option in terms of the road alignment that may not affect the property as much as the proposal that's been put on the table so far. So it's really premature to speculate how this will unfold.
But the net result, it's not unreasonable. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's not unreasonable to say that if this application goes forward and we allow, what we allow it to go up to like 10 or 12 stories or 14 or whatever, that if we have to take that property, that we're basically writing a much bigger check and enriching the developer as a result of having to secure that land for the new road. Is that an unreasonable statement?
I think that's more of a real estate question. Through you, Madam Chair, there is an inherent value already on the property with regards to its mixed-use designation, because it's already designated mixed use, and it's already on O'Connor Drive, so there's an inherent value to that. What the applicant is doing now is trying to implement that official plan designation through the form of a mid-rise development. In terms of what potentially would be a resulting approval on the site, it's premature to speculate, because right now we're dealing with the preliminary report.
Madam Chair, I thank him for those questions. I'm thinking that it might be far more appropriate to ask him those questions outside on the square, because he's skating pretty good.
That was somewhat unparliamentary, but I'm going to let it go because it's late in the morning.
I say it in a very sort of positive spirit.
Yes, yes. Are there any other questions of staff?
No.
I'm going to leave it today too, although I know the area quite well. Councillor, did you want to make recommendations?
Yeah, I just want to briefly speak to it. I mean, it's just a preliminary report, so. Oh, and we can extend the notice area now after the fact, right? Yeah. I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the committee, because it's a big deal, realigning the road. And, it's, I don't think it's mere coincidence that the applicant's coming in at this time to try and put this development application through. And, at the end of the day, the idea of us approving it has consequences for the community, but it also has the consequences for the city's bank account and for the taxpayers. And so this is going to go through a process, but I just wanted to bring it to the community's consideration. Also, you should be, because the Scarborough, and there's a very vigorous discussion going on right now, the portion of the Scarborough secondary plan, they've moved the boundary into North York. And that means that there are going to be significant and substantial changes that are within the geographic boundaries of this community council that will never come to this community council.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, the reason why I held it and just didn't let it go through is I thought it was important that the committee members know that this is taking place. So I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Okay. I'm just going to ask a question of the mover. Have you, as the local councillor affected here, made a request to bring this to North York Community Council?
Yeah, I talked to the chief planner about this and raised my concerns. So,
okay.
So what they're doing, imagine, if you will, if they were changing Sheppard Avenue or changing the direction of Sheppard Avenue.
Yeah.
Or they were changing, for example, I don't know, some local street. There's a street there called Bartley Drive that's a local street.
Yeah.
They're putting signalized intersections up there in Victoria Park. Significant and substantial impacts on the community. Changing the direction of an arterial road will affect the entire community.
Yeah.
And North York Community Council will not currently have any say in the matter except for at council. It'll be dealt with at the Planning and Housing Committee.
Okay.
Which,
Planning and Housing,
which doesn't really have an understanding of that area. It doesn't have a very good understanding of the area.
Okay. So the staff recommendations are before us. All in favor, opposed, that is carried. So that is item number 8. Councillors, are you ready to go back? Have we got the motion sorted out for item number 27? I have 2 additional items I can go to first, if you like, while you're working out it. Okay, so this is, we're going back to item number 27, the tree request, where we were contemplating some additional reports. So do we have a draft motion now? Ooh, it's an embarrassment of riches. Councillor Minawong, are you moving them? Or Councillor Cole? Ah, okay, we're splitting the difference. Councillor Cole, your motion?
Yes, I move that we defer consideration of the item until Council Health staff or the medical officer of health can submit a report to the June 25th, 2019 meeting of North York Community Council on the issue of allergic reactions specific to the black walnut tree located at 45 Addison Crescent.
That is entirely in order. Any questions of the mover? Seeing none, Councillor Minawong, you had another motion?
Yes, request city solicitor submit a report to the June 25th, 2019 meeting of North York Community Council on potential liability concerns in relation to the black walnut tree located at.
Okay, those are the motions which takes into account the item and future actions. First on Councillor Cole's motion to defer and get the report. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And on the solicitor report request from Councillor Minawong, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we will, oh, I think Mr. Ng has headed out. Okay. So we will hear back in a couple of meetings' time. Last but not least, I have the two additional items. Councillors, we have first, item number 32 is a motion from Councillor Fillions Ward, report from the Director and Deputy Chief Building Official regarding a request to demolish the residential building at 101 Sheppard. Councillor Fillion?
Yes, this is an unusual situation where the owner of the property is caught in a catch-22, and after having reviewed this with planning staff and building staff and the applicant, I believe everybody's in agreement that this is the way to proceed. So I'm going to move recommendation 3, that the application to demolish the vacant residential building be approved with the following conditions, and I'll just do conditions A and B because I don't think C and D are necessary because they're planning to construct on the site.
Oh, I see. Okay, so councillors, with respect to 3.32, we're moving recommendation 3A and B. No comments? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Councillors got that. Similarly, 3.33 is a motion put forward by myself, also an unusual situation, and has to do with a catch-22 regarding demolition. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. I think that is all the items, Madam Clerk. I haven't missed any. I haven't missed any items, though. Okay, excellent. Okay. Councillor Cole, you have a motion to introduce and enact certain bills.
Yes, I do, Madam Chair, that the North York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 290 to 295, 305, and 306 prepared for the February 14th, 2019 meeting 3 of the Community Council.
Okay, shall these bills be passed and declared as a bylaw? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Fillion, you now have the other one.
And that the North York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the North York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 3 on February 14th, 2019.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Do I have anything else procedural, Madam Clerk? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Minawong, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. All righty then. Thank you.